Imagine this. You're riding your bike through a quiet forest trail, the sun casting golden streaks on the path ahead, when suddenly, thud, your tire goes flat. What do you do? Do you give up and walk away, or do you find a way to fix it? Hello, my name is William, and welcome to this special storytelling session. Today, we're diving into an emotional and inspiring tale called The Broken Bike. This story isn't just about fixing a flat tire. It's about resilience, creativity, and finding unexpected solutions in life's toughest moments. Whether you're here to improve your English listening and speaking skills or simply seeking a heartfelt narrative, I promise this journey will stay with you long after the video ends. But before we begin, let me share something intriguing. The protagonist of our story faces not one but multiple challenges that seem insurmountable at first glance. And yet, what happens next might surprise you, and perhaps even inspire you to tackle your own obstacles differently. So sit back, relax, and prepare for a roller coaster of emotions as we unravel the broken bike. It was a crisp autumn morning, and Emily had set out early on her favorite trail, a winding path surrounded by towering trees painted orange and red. Her trusty old bike creaked slightly under her weight, but she loved every pedal stroke. For Emily, biking wasn't just exercise. It was freedom, escape, and therapy all rolled into one. She'd been feeling particularly low lately, burdened by personal struggles she couldn't quite put into words. But today, she hoped the ride would clear her mind. The air smelled fresh, carrying hints of damp earth and fallen leaves. Birds chirped cheerfully in the distance, their melodies blending with the soft crunch of gravel beneath her tires. As Emily pedaled along, she felt a rare sense of peace wash over her. It was as if the world outside, the bills piling up, the arguments with friends, the nagging doubts about her future, had faded away, leaving only this moment. But then, as she approached a bend in the trail, something caught her eye. A sharp object glinted ominously near the edge of the path. Before she could react, her front wheel hit it, sending her jolting forward. She managed to steady herself, gripping the handlebars tightly, but the damage was done. When she stopped to inspect the bike, her heart sank. Her tire was completely flat, its rubber sagging lifelessly against the rim. "No, no, no," Emily muttered under her breath, kneeling beside the bike. She rummaged through her backpack, hoping to find a repair kit or even a spare tube, but there was nothing. Despair began to creep in. This part of the trail was isolated, far from any roads or towns. There was no repair shop nearby, and her phone battery was dangerously low. What was she supposed to do now? Just as panic threatened to overwhelm her, Emily heard a faint rustling sound from behind the bushes. At first, she thought it might be the wind, but the noise grew louder, more deliberate. Her pulse quickened. Was someone, or something, watching her? She stood up slowly, clutching her bike for support, and scanned the area nervously. To her surprise, a small fox emerged cautiously from the underbrush. Its sleek coat shimmered in the sunlight, and its wide eyes sparkled with curiosity. The animal sniffed around her bike before scampering off into the woods, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Emily let out a shaky laugh, partly relieved, partly amused. "Well, that was unexpected," she whispered to herself. Still, the encounter left her unsettled. Why had the fox shown up at that exact moment? Could nature be trying to send her a message? Or was it simply coincidence? Emily shook her head, chiding herself for letting her imagination run wild. She needed to focus on finding a solution to her problem. As she stood there, pondering her next move, she spotted another cyclist approaching in the distance. They were still too far away to make out clearly, but the sight gave her a flicker of hope. Maybe they could help. But as the figure drew closer, Emily hesitated. Something about them seemed off. Their posture was stiff, almost unnatural, and they weren't slowing down despite clearly seeing her stranded on the side of the trail. Who was this mysterious rider? And why did they seem so intent on ignoring her plight? Cliffhanger. Would the approaching cyclist offer help, or make things worse? The cyclist drew closer, their silhouette growing clearer against the golden hues of the autumn forest. Emily squinted, trying to gauge whether this stranger posed a threat or offered salvation. As they neared, she noticed that the figure was older, an elderly man with a weathered face and kind eyes framed by thick glasses. His bike looked sturdy and well-maintained, though it bore signs of countless rides through rugged terrain. "Flat tire?" he asked knowingly, slowing to a stop beside her. His voice was calm and reassuring, carrying the warmth of someone who had seen, and fixed, more than his fair share of problems over the years. Emily nodded hesitantly, still unsure if she should trust him. "Yeah, my tire's completely flat," she admitted, gesturing helplessly at her damaged wheel. "I don't have any tools or anything." The man chuckled softly, dismounting from his bike with practiced ease. He introduced himself as Harold, a retired mechanic who often biked these trails for peace and solitude. "Don't worry," he said, giving her a reassuring smile. "You don't need fancy tools to solve problems. Sometimes, all you need is creativity." From his backpack, Harold pulled out a roll of duct tape and some twine. Emily watched in awe as he began patching up her tire using unconventional methods. First, he wrapped the duct tape tightly around the punctured area to seal the hole temporarily. Then, he used the twine to reinforce the rim, ensuring the makeshift repair would hold long enough to get her back to civilization. As they worked together, Harold shared stories of his youth, how he'd once fixed an entire car engine using scraps found in a junkyard. His tales were filled with wisdom, humor, and a touch of nostalgia. Emily found herself smiling despite her predicament. For the first time that day, she felt a glimmer of hope. Just as Harold finished wrapping the last piece of twine, he paused mid-story, his expression growing serious. "There's more to this trail than meets the eye," he muttered cryptically, glancing toward the dense woods surrounding them. "What do you mean?" Emily asked, her curiosity piqued. Harold didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed to a nearby tree where strange symbols were carved deeply into the bark. They looked ancient, almost otherworldly, their intricate patterns standing out starkly against the rough surface. "I've seen those before," Harold explained. "Some locals believe the markings are mystical, like warnings or blessings left behind by people long gone." He shrugged dismissively, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Personally, I think it's just superstition. Still, it makes you wonder." Moments later, Emily noticed similar symbols etched into several other trees along the path. Each carving seemed fresher than the last, as if someone, or something, had been adding to them recently. A chill ran down her spine. The discovery added an eerie layer to their surroundings, turning what had started as a simple biking trip into something far more mysterious. Despite her growing unease, Emily forced herself to focus on the task at hand. With Harold's guidance, they managed to stabilize her bike enough for her to ride cautiously. But just as they finished, a loud crack echoed through the woods, startling them both. It sounded like a branch snapping under immense pressure, or perhaps something heavier moving through the underbrush. Harold turned sharply toward the source of the noise, his brow furrowed. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, his earlier confidence wavering slightly. Emily nodded, gripping her bike tightly. Her heart pounded in her chest as adrenaline surged through her veins. Whatever, or whoever, was making that sound was close, too close for comfort. Both Harold and Emily stared into the shadows of the forest, hearts racing. What, or who, was out there? The sound came again, louder this time, a sharp crack followed by the unmistakable rustle of branches breaking underfoot. Emily's grip on her bike tightened as fear gripped her chest. She glanced at Harold, who stood frozen for a moment before motioning for her to stay calm. "Whatever it is," he whispered, his voice steady despite the tension in the air, "we'll face it together." Slowly, they moved toward the noise, stepping carefully over roots and rocks. The forest seemed darker now, its golden light dimmed by the encroaching shadows. Every step felt heavier, every sound more ominous. Emily's mind raced with possibilities. Was it an animal? A hiker lost like them? Or something else entirely? As they rounded a cluster of bushes, the source of the commotion revealed itself. To their astonishment, they found a young boy sitting cross-legged on the ground, tears streaming down his face. His bike lay beside him, its frame bent beyond repair. He looked no older than 10, his clothes muddy and torn, his eyes wide with fear. "I got lost," he whimpered between sobs, clutching a small backpack tightly. "I don't know where I am." Emily's heart broke for him. Despite her own troubles, she knew she had to help. Kneeling beside the boy, she introduced herself gently. "Hi there. My name's Emily. Don't worry, we're going to get you home." The boy sniffled but nodded, his trembling hands gripping hers briefly. Harold stepped forward, assessing the situation with practiced efficiency. "We can carry his bike while we walk him back to safety," he suggested. Together, they devised a plan. Harold would take the lead, clearing the way. Emily would support the boy, keeping him calm, and they'd bring the broken bike along, just in case they encountered others who could fix it later. As they began their journey back, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed. Every snap of a twig, every flutter of leaves overhead made her glance nervously over her shoulder. Was it paranoia, or was something, or someone, trailing them? The group pressed on, navigating the winding trail as daylight began to wane. The eerie symbols they'd noticed earlier seemed to appear more frequently now, almost guiding, or taunting, them deeper into the woods. Emily tried to focus on the boy beside her, asking him questions to distract both of them. His name was Ben, he told her shyly, and he'd been exploring the trail alone when he took a wrong turn. "My dad says I shouldn't go off by myself," he admitted, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "But I wanted to prove I could do it." Emily smiled softly, her maternal instincts kicking in. "It's okay, Ben. Everyone gets lost sometimes. What matters is that we stick together and find our way back." Just as she finished speaking, a flock of birds erupted from the treetops above them, startled by some unseen force. In the chaos, Emily tripped over an exposed root, landing hard on the ground. Pain shot through her ankle, sharp and sudden. She bit back a cry, gritting her teeth as she examined the injury. It wasn't broken, but it was definitely sprained, and walking would be difficult, if not impossible. Harold knelt beside her, concern etched on his face. "Can you put weight on it?" he asked. Emily tested her foot gingerly, wincing. "I think so," she replied, though doubt clouded her voice. Now, not only was her bike partially fixed, but she too needed assistance. How were they supposed to get everyone home safely? Ben watched silently, his earlier fear replaced by determination. "I can help," he offered, grabbing one end of Emily's bike. Harold nodded approvingly. "All right, team. Let's keep moving. We'll figure this out together." As night fell, casting long shadows across the forest floor, the group stumbled upon an abandoned cabin deep in the woods. Its windows were dark, its door slightly ajar. Should they risk entering, or brave the darkness outside? The cabin loomed ahead, its wooden walls groaning softly against the wind. It looked ancient, almost forgotten by time, yet it offered a glimmer of hope in the growing darkness. Emily hesitated at first, her instincts screaming caution. But with her injured ankle throbbing painfully and Ben shivering beside her, she knew they had little choice. "We'll check it out," Harold said firmly, stepping forward to lead the way. "Better than staying out here." Inside, the air was musty, carrying the scent of damp wood and old memories. The faint light filtering through cracks in the walls revealed remnants of past visitors, a dusty lantern hanging from a nail, a pile of moth-eaten blankets stacked in the corner, and, miraculously, a rusted toolbox sitting on a rickety table. Emily's spirits lifted slightly. Perhaps fate hadn't abandoned them after all. Harold wasted no time inspecting the contents of the toolbox. Though most of the tools were worn or corroded, he managed to salvage a few useful items. With renewed determination, he set about reinforcing Emily's bike repairs while she tended to her ankle. Using strips torn from one of the blankets, she fashioned a makeshift brace to stabilize her injury. Meanwhile, Ben busied himself stacking firewood into a small circle, mimicking what he'd seen Harold do earlier. As they worked, the atmosphere shifted. The initial fear that had gripped them began to fade, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. They were strangers brought together by circumstance, united in their shared struggle. For the first time since the flat tire derailed her plans, Emily felt a flicker of peace. Just as Harold lit a small fire, casting flickering shadows across the room, Emily noticed something etched into the cabin wall. A series of symbols identical to those they'd seen along the trail. Beneath them, words scrawled hastily in faded ink read, "Strength lies within." "What does that mean?" Ben asked curiously, pointing at the inscription. Emily stared at the phrase, feeling an unexpected surge of emotion. She thought about her own struggles, the doubts and fears she'd carried with her before setting out on this ride, and realized how much strength she'd found in herself today. It wasn't just about fixing a flat tire, it was about facing challenges head-on, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. "It means we're stronger than we think," she replied softly, her voice filled with conviction. "No matter how hard things get, we always have the power to keep going." Inspired by the message, Emily decided to leave her own mark, a note of encouragement for future travelers. Using a piece of charcoal from the fire, she carefully wrote on the wall, "You are braver than you believe and stronger than you seem. Keep pedaling forward." As she stepped back to admire her work, tears welled up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from pride. She had faced her fears and emerged stronger because of it. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly above them, dotted with stars that seemed brighter than usual. By the time they reached civilization hours later, Ben reunited with his frantic parents, Emily limping toward home, and Harold disappearing quietly into the crowd. They were forever changed. Emily reflected on the day's events as she lay in bed that night. She realized that every challenge she faced, not just the flat tire but also her inner turmoil, had taught her valuable lessons. Life, like biking, required balance, perseverance, and sometimes, a little help from others. Even Harold admitted during their final moments together that he'd gained newfound respect for human resilience. The journey had tested her limits but ultimately strengthened her resolve. Emily vowed to carry the lessons she'd learned into the future, to approach life's obstacles not with dread, but with courage and creativity. And though she would never forget the broken bike or the mysterious symbols in the woods, she knew one thing for certain: strength truly did lie within. And so, dear viewers, Emily's story reminds us that no matter how daunting life's challenges may seem, we always have the power to overcome them, if we dare to try. If this tale touched your heart or inspired you, please hit the like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories like this. Share this video with friends and family who might need a dose of hope today. Together, let's spread positivity and inspiration, one story at a time. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep pedaling forward.